Favor. This is one more, please. I always start with, how are you today, Bob?
I'm good. Good to be here.
Thank you for coming. Welcome to Otra, por favor. My name is Richie. And as you guys know, our podcast is about conversations that have to do with soccer, life, and culture. Right before we were, hopped in the mic, we actually had a soccer conversation, and then we talked about your love for Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm new to soccer. It's only been 2 years now, and so I was trying to get into it. I mean, I've been watching World Cup for maybe 10 years, and I always enjoyed World Cup. And then in between the World Cup, I was like, oh, let me check out like Premier League because that's supposed to be great. And I would try it, and I was just like, oh, I don't get it. And I would try to watch MLS, and I was like, I don't get it. And but then at the beginning of 22, in January, I got COVID, and I got freaked out. I don't know why I did, but I felt like I just had a lot of anxiety about it, and I had ESPN Plus. I was a subscriber to that, and I kept seeing like Bayern Munich on ESPN Plus, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll check out maybe I'll check out Bayern. Because when I was 2, my parents moved to Germany, and I ended up spending 16 years in Germany, and 7 of those years I was in Munich, Germany. So I was like, well, let me check out that and see if I like it. And so I started watching it, and it was right when they didn't have anybody in the stadium. So I watched a game or two where nobody was in the stadium, and I was like, I don't like this at all. Like,
you hear just the guys screaming to each other?
Yeah. But then I watched a game from 2019, and I watched this game where Frankfurt actually beat Bayern by have you seen that game?
Yeah.
They got red carded at the beginning, and then they lost by 4-6. I don't know. My memory's not good, but they got beat bad. But man, I was watching that, and something about the noise of that crowd, it almost sounded like the sea, like the waves of the sea. And something about it, got rid of all my anxiety. It was such a weird thing. So I just started watching. I started watching all these old Bayern Munich games, and then as I was watching those, they started putting more and more people in the crowd, and. But then I was like, well, let me see what else, let me see what else is going on. So I sell art at this place here in Austin called Yard Dog. Okay. And the guy who runs Yard Dog, Randy Franklin's a big soccer guy. His son plays soccer and stuff. So I was asking him, I was like, who should I watch, in the Premier League? And he's like, well, I'm an Arsenal fan. So I was like, all right, I'll check it out and see if I like it. And this is the beginning of 22.
Yeah. And
they'd kind of had a rough start in that year at the end of 21, but at the beginning of 22, they really started kicking butt. And so I started watching these games, and he was trying to sell it like, oh, they're going to break your heart. Arsenal sucks. They always lose. But I started watching, and I was like, oh man, these guys are really good. And of course they did kind of blow it at the end of that season. They didn't make it into the Champions League, but yeah, so I don't know. I really like that team. I like the coach. I like the players. So then I just became a huge Arsenal fan. And then, of course, the MLS season didn't start. When does that start? Like in August or something?
Started in 2022. Started in April.
So it starts right. So as soon as the Premier League ended, MLS starts. So I was like, oh, well, let me check out Austin FC. And I didn't watch that first season of Austin FC at all. I knew it was going on.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't into it. I just wasn't into soccer. So of course the Premier League ends, and I'm like, oh man, I need more soccer. Because again, it was this thing where I would watch it and my anxiety would just go away. It was like magic. And so I was like, I need more of that. So I started watching Austin FC, and of course, Austin FC killed it last year.
So it was great.
It was amazing. So I started watching all those games, and then I got invited to some games, so I got to go. And I mean, the facilities are amazing. And I'll tell you what happened. So I get down there, and I've been to a couple professional, like, American football games. I don't like it. I've never liked big sporting events. I don't know why. Like, they just seem like, I don't know why. But something about going to Q2 and seeing Austin FC, I get down there, and something weird happened, like something tribal, where I was like, oh, these are my people. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
nice.
the whole supporter section, it seemed like we were going to war, you know? And like with the drums and with the horns and with everybody going crazy and the flags and everything. And I was like, oh, because I've always thought of myself as an Austin person. I've been in Austin now for 35 years. Okay. And before I got to Austin, I moved my whole life. Like every year or two, I'd move somewhere. So this is the only place I've ever lived for a long period of time. So when I think of myself, I think I'm an Austinite. And of course, we've never had any, I mean, we have like UT Longhorns or whatever, but I just never got into it.
Yeah.
But man, when I was at QT, I'm like, no, this is my tribe. These are my people. This is like, we're going to war and we have to win. Because if we lose, we're dead. They take our women. They take our land.
They take everything.
They take it all.
Yeah.
But if we win, we get everything. We get all their women. We get all their land. We get all their gold.
The bragging rights.
So it tapped into something weird in some part of my brain. And I'm telling you, dude, like I got into it. And I went to a bunch of games last year and I loved every minute of it. Like when the lights turn green, like I was like, I'm telling you, man, I would have never thought I would feel that way about any sport, let alone soccer. Like I just didn't get it.
Back in the days, it was like soccer.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird. So I'm like a total fan now, and I've been to a bunch of games. I love it. And in fact, I just did the drum. Like that's where I saw you.
That's where we were introduced after a decade.
Yeah. So that was really cool doing that, and then being there and being behind the net the whole time. Man, that was so fun because you don't really understand how like seriously hard they're kicking that ball until you're like behind this. I'm like, how do I don't even know how those goalies do it, man. They're like,
it's those gloves, man.
That's like, yeah. Well, that ball's coming at you fast.
Yeah, it's
crazy. So yeah, so I'm a big fan, huge fan. Love Austin FC, Arsenal, Bayern, of course, Team USA. Been watching all those games, and of course Germany because I grew up in spent 16 years in Germany, so that's sort of my secondary team. And then my wife, her whole family's from France, so of course France, kicks butt. So if USA gets knocked out, which they do, then I go to Germany. If Germany gets knocked out, then I got France. Yeah. So
I think like when I think of soccer right now, yes, it is nationalistic but there's also a sense of it become globalized that sometimes it's okay to pick for a team. This past World Cup, France and Argentina were in the final. You had a good amount of in the world rooting for each team because Messi and the other ones, they're not Messi fans. And I mean, just the at the end of the day, like the huge party that it becomes when there's a World Cup, or even now, Austin FC plays, that's a huge game day for a lot of people. And they prepare their whole week around the season and how they, not whole week, but like their whole like calendar now around the season and make sure that they go to every game, which we're going to talk a little more about.
Now, who were you rooting for? Were you rooting for Argentina or France in the World Cup?
In the World Cup, I was rooting for Mexico until we got, we got kicked out. But I wanted Messi to take it just because as a Barcelona fan, I saw Messi not like I don't know Messi, but I saw him play since he was young till the World Cup. So it's just one of those that you want a player like him to at least have one. Cause
No, I wanted, like, Argentina had to win.
yeah,
I mean, so that World Cup, by far, the greatest sporting event I've ever seen in my life. Like, by far,
yeah,
greater than, like, you couldn't have scripted it. You've got Mbappe in France. Like, they just won it. Mbappe, you know,
young guy,
going to be one of the great players of all time, maybe the greatest of all time. You don't know. You know, can't see the future, but so far, you know, he's coming up. And then you got Messi, one of the greatest of all times, never won a World Cup. Like, never won one.
There's a lot at stake. A lot. Either.
And then it goes to overtime.
And then penalties.
The penalties. Oh, man, it was so incredible.
It
was amazing. Dude, I'm telling you, I was running around. I had my shirt off. Like, it was crazy. I loved that game. It was so incredible. And again, like I said, like my third or fourth team is France, but I didn't care. I was like, no, it's got to be Argentina.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like once the final comes, you pick a side.
You have to.
Yeah, there's no way anyone that watches soccer like, nah, I'm done watching the World Cup. Nah, you don't. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the love of the sport.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about. I mean, I think about all sports, you kind of have to have a dog in the hunt. But with soccer, for sure, like if I don't care, like it's hard for me to just watch a soccer game if I don't love, like, but you can love like a player or something. Like if you, that's the other thing that's so weird about soccer that I didn't even realize coming into it is like how much movement there is. Like players, you know, go from team to team. So, I mean, that's the other thing too about like watching these world friendlies. I'm like, I know all these players. Like you know, when I was just watching the World Cup, I didn't know any of those players.
Yeah.
So now it's like, I know everybody. It's pretty cool. It's fun.
That's cool. Now from this past season, Austin FC didn't have the best run, but did you still get to watch a lot of the games this season?
I did watch a lot of the games. It was such a weird year because like part of the game we looked so good, like we were like, oh, we're killing it.
Yeah.
And then just stuff would happen and you'd be like, what is, you know, it is a weird sport where you can play 80% of the game perfect. And then if you just fall off for 20% of the game, you could lose it. I did think like last year we won a bunch of games that probably maybe we
could have lost
easily. And then this year we lost a lot of games that we could have probably won. And I don't know why we didn't win some of those games, you know, just some. And again, I don't know, because I don't know that much about. I don't, you know, it's that part's a mystery to me, because I'd be watching and be like, well, I think we're going to definitely win this game. And then somehow we'd end up losing it. And I was like, I don't get it, you know.
It's tough because soccer's a lot about momentum, a lot about a moment. It could be a pass. It could be a player making a specific run, opening up the field, and then out of nowhere, you're losing 2-1, you tie 2-2, and then you make a comeback.
Yeah.
And
that was last year. We
did that.
That's what
last
we did
year.
that on the regular. It was amazing.
And then whenever it's a season like this one where you try to make that pass, but they already know you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, but it's also anticipation.
Yeah. Well, it started out bad. Just that first game against St. Louis.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, doesn't bode well for the season.
Yeah, that first game was detrimental to what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's all like, you know, I hope that the rebuild comes this off season. You know, they take a breather and come back and get whatever tools they need to succeed next season.
Well, I think we have a really good, like the fan base is really good. I think the team is, you know, solid for the most part. So, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of hope. I hope, you know, next year it's better. I don't know what, you know, you'd never know what the changes are going to be or, you know, what's going to, it's, you know, changes happen. You're like, you know, why?
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, like, I mean, this has nothing to do with Austin FC, but last year, Bayern Munich, like halfway through the season, they just fired that coach who's now the head of, you know, he's the coach for Germany, but they just fired that guy in the middle and they were doing great. So I'm like, what are you doing? And then they hired this new guy and then they started losing right after that. So I don't understand how any of it works. I love watching it though. It's a fun sport to watch for sure.
As you watch it, you're gonna grasp more of the team's cultures, how every culture is different.
Yeah.
How, like, say, Arsenal compared to Chelsea, is different, or Man City is different. Even like in the MLS, how, you know, what's gonna happen with Austin, because I think Austin now, the fan base, they're so passionate about it. They invest time in it. Like you see a lot of people, and I used to live in Houston. I went to a lot of Dynamo games, but I didn't see the caliber of involvement from the community as much as I saw it here.
Well, it's funny because I have a friend who's a big Houston Dynamo guy. So
Yeah.
I went to a game last year, and then I went this year. And last year I went, and like that stadium was like maybe a third full, if that, which was weird because all the games I'd been to at Austin FC, they were all sold out.
Right.
And then in the corner of the stadium where the Austin people were, it was packed, and those guys were going crazy. And I'm telling you, when I got there,
Yeah.
I almost started crying because I was like, oh, they're my people. They're here. We're here. We're going to beat these guys. And then, like, in the first 2 minutes was that kick where the Houston guy kicked it over Stuver, and then Stuver went back to get it, and then he like almost broke his leg or something right off the bat. I'm like, oh, that's not a good start. I mean, we ended up beating Houston, but I was like, it definitely took all the wind out of myself. And then I went this year, and now it was like 2/3 full, and there was a lot more Houston supporters, and then they beat us, which was not fun. Of course, all the people I was with, they have like my friends, he's like a huge supporter. He actually owns that bar that's right across the street from the stadium. They have like a soccer pitch in there. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it's got a name.
Remember, but I know which one we're talking about.
It's like something. Anyways, so they were real, you know, they were very happy that they won, and I was not happy. But yeah, I mean, again, and then of course you saw Houston like completely turn it around this year, and then they won the went against Inter Miami for the the big game and stuff.
The U.S. Open.
That U.S. Open game. So yeah, my friend. I saw my friend the night before because I had a gig in Houston, and he was like, "Man, we chartered a plane. We're gonna go down to Miami and we're gonna watch that game, or wherever." It wasn't in Miami. Wherever it was. It was in. Was it in Miami?
No, the final.
The final for the. I think it was in Miami. Yeah, it was in Miami. So we're gonna fly down there, and I'm like, "Oh, you'll be able to see Messi play," and he didn't play.
Yeah,
but Houston won. So.
It's so, and then like you look at Inter Miami with Messi right now, how much exposure they're getting from the world.
Yeah.
And then and it's like the stadium, they're saying like it's too small for them. They need a bigger stadium. But whenever Messi's not playing, it's a completely different team.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, just to see Messi play, I mean it just sucks that we're not in the same. Like, we don't really play Inter Miami, which really...
That'll be... As a photographer, I'm, like, looking forward to that day.
I mean, how cool would that be? Just
amazing.
Well, the other thing, too, is, like... So I was watching... So that first year, I was trying to watch PSG because it was, like, Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi all in the same field. Of like, of course I'm going to watch those games. Yeah. The whole season, I don't think I ever saw Messi smile once. He was just always, like...
Mad.
I was like, I guess he doesn't smile. And then as soon as he was on Miami, you never see him not smiling. He's like, he's so happy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's killing it. So I don't know. That was kind of cool to see him like kind of dominate too, It is kind of weird because you're like, oh yeah, MLS got a ways to go.
It's growing. It's growing.
It's growing.
But
it's going to get
got
there.
Ways, yeah.
Hopefully. I don't know.
But now that's cool. And I'm glad that you got the opportunity to do the heartbeat. I think that the goal for Houston, for Austin, was to portray and allow the local, as many local artists as possible, to pump up the crowd.
Yeah.
It's for me, I think about it as it's different whenever you have a big name person, but it's not really into it.
Yeah.
They're just like, just for the picture. But when you have like a local artist that actually does have love for the city, they're going at it.
I mean, it's love for the city. It's love for the team. I'm telling you, dude, it's tribal, man. It's like, it taps into something like real. Like when I see the other team, I'm like, they're the enemy. There's no love for the other. I mean, I remember one game I was down there at the stadium and the goalie was like, for the other team, was like stalling, which is what you do. You know, it's getting towards the end of the game. You want to stall as much as you can. I think they were ahead,
Take their time, fix their song.
And the stadium started booing, and I'd never been in a stadium where people were booing people. Oh, man, I was loving it. Like, every time the goalie got the ball, even for a second, like, as soon as he touched it, the whole stadium, boo! Oh, my God, dude, that was so fun. And what was funny was, because everybody was booing, he was fucking up. Like, he was, like, making... He was like rushing it and making bad kicks. I think we ended up winning that game. So, anyways, it was just fun. Again, it's not like, but here's the weird thing. If I would have been doing that heartbeat 3 years ago, or the first year, which I never watched any of the soccer, if I would have just shown up, I'd have been like that. I'd have been like, well, all right, I'll do it, but I wouldn't have cared. Or maybe I would have. I don't know. But something happened when I got into that stadium and I felt that energy and the green and black. I don't know, man, something, it rang, I don't know, it rang some kind of, from like 100,000 years ago, like evolutionary,
It brought some kind of feeling.
It's like Braveheart.
There we go.
It's like real shit.
And the thing is, it's not just like, it's very, I would say, the age group, and that whenever people are in the stadium, it's pretty. You have the older crowd, the younger crowd.
Oh, it's all ages.
It's all ages, and it's good because then you're bringing in kids that are learning about the game, but you're also bringing in people that have never watched it. And want to learn more about it. And I think that's the whole point at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It really, like, it's truly one of those games too. And I remember, so my friend, the guy that turned me on to Arsenal, he was like, "Well, man, at some point, it's gonna switch where you're gonna like soccer more than you're gonna like football." And I'm like, "No way! I love American football. Like, there's no contest. I will never like." But absolutely, that happened. Like, if there's a soccer game on or a football game, I'm watching the soccer game. Football game can wait. I love football. I watch a lot of games, but
I have a way of thinking. Why not both?
No, I do both. I mean, I do both. But if I'm going to watch a game live and they're on at the same time, and it's Arsenal versus whatever my American football team is, I'm watching Arsenal for sure.
Y'all heard that right there, Austin Gooners. You have a new guy that's going to be coming in.
You're telling me about the Gooner, the place where everybody watches the games.
Yeah, it's at the tavern. I'll give you more info about it. I'll connect you with the people that I know.
Yeah, I gotta go down there one day and check that out. That'll be fun.
But I'm glad you're experiencing the emotions that soccer brings, and I'm because I'm pretty sure you're gonna experience the good feeling of victories and winning championships, but also just the heartbreak when you're like this close to winning. And
that's the thing, dude. That's the thing I wasn't aware of either. Like, so I get down there, I get tapped into the Austin FC scene. I'm watching those games. But dude, when we lose, I mean, I remember I was at a game and we lost, and I was like, I don't even know if I can watch. I may have to stop watching games because this feeling is so intense. Like I feel so sad and depressed. I'm like, I can't handle this. But then, like anything, it's kind of like it creates like a scar or something. Like, how long have you been watching soccer? Like 20 years, 30 years?
About over 30.
So you've been watching 30 years. So your heart is hardened. It's full of scars.
Oh, yeah.
It's been ripped open and then sutured. So now you're like, you're like, well, I've been down this road before. I've felt this pain. I've had these tears, you know. For me, it was all new, like in the last year and a half. So, you know, next time it happens, I'm like, well, if we lose, we lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not as bad. It's like when you fall in love for the first time. You know, you fall in love so hard, and then after that, you're like, I'm not falling in love this hard ever again.
No, you know, so Austin has a weird, you know, I would say vibe or energy because, you know, the main team is not doing good or didn't do good this season, or, you know, they're not closing the way everybody wanted to. But there's the MLS Pro Next League, which is pretty much younger guys that don't get the opportunity to play in the first team. They play in this league, and it's still part of Austin in the MLS. So they're playing like the, you know, like the junior version, like the JB sort of.
Sure, yeah.
And Austin is playing the final versus Columbus. Columbus was owned by Anthony Precourt back in the days.
Oh, wow.
And like we, you know, we're playing on Sunday, I think at 3:00. So that's one. And then, you know, looking at the bracket and then the standings in the MLS Pro League this season, Colorado was first place, and then Austin was up there too. Colorado's last place in the main with the big guys.
Yeah.
So it's how different the dynamics are in both tournaments.
It's so weird, yeah.
And then here it's in MLS, you know, Pro Next Pro, you get to pick your opponent for the playoff games. So Austin got picked 3 times, and they beat them all 3 times. So now it's actually one that, okay, it matches because of, you know, the winning. They keep going round after round. So it's sort of we're heartbroken, but hey, the kids have got our backs.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. I mean, it's like, those young kids are gonna grow up and they're gonna play. You know, so I mean, that's what I'm loving about the Team USA. Like the under 21s are so strong, and Team USA is pretty good. I mean, I'm just you know, again, I love the name. I love that national soccer, you know, where it's like country versus country.
Yeah.
Again, there's something so primal about it. You know what I mean? It's like war. It's like real war, but instead of people dying, you know, you lose a game. But I'm telling you, it taps into that same thing, same part of the brain. So
it's if you ever get a chance to watch US play live, man, I recommend it. But also, if you ever get a chance to watch US play against Mexico live,
I would love that.
If you're really looking for that experience.
Well, right now, as we're doing this podcast, Mexico's playing Germany. Yeah. And I'm like, I would love to be watching that game.
And then US is playing Ghana.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, that's the other. Yeah, I wish there was better. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like, I was trying to record. Like, I have Fubo, so I'm recording that game. But yeah, there's some of the friendlies. They're kind of hard to find.
Yeah, because TV rights. I think
some of the TV rights.
ESPN does get some European games.
Yeah.
And then Univision. I don't know if USA Today gets USA channel gets them or not, but usually the Champions League, you know, Univision will get a lot of more Europeans.
Well, dude, I used to have like HBO and Amazon and Netflix, and that was it. Now I got Fubo, Peacock, Paramount, ESPN Plus. Because if I don't, you have to have all of them if you want to watch. Yeah. If you want to watch all, you know, Bundesliga and Champions and Premier, you got to have all those to get all the games. So,
I would say, but before anything, like moving forward, I always want to give a shout out to Austin FC to make it to the final. overdue, guys, and go get it, guys. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. I think of if you have the love for Austin, watching these kids win it, like even if they lose it, like they did something amazing like this year.
Well, hopefully it'll happen. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And before we move any further, in the studio I have after an awesome conversation about football, which I loved it. I have Bob Schneider. He's a condecorated singer, songwriter, and has won several Austin Music Awards for different categories.
Yeah.
But the reason why I wanted to invite you is because one, I got a chance to first see you live in 2011 at the Mucky Duck in Houston. And I was starting to learn how to play instruments, and what caught my attention is you were pretty much one-man band, and you started the set with playing an instrument, and I think you were having a looper, and then you played another instrument, then you had a looper, and then from that you built your set, but also the interaction you had with some fans, and then sometimes like the I don't care, I'll play the song if you guys don't like it, which for me it was cool. And it's the Mucky Duck. I think it's in 59 and Kirby, around that area, and it's pretty small. Where you're standing, it can get pretty packed. To go to the restroom, we really have to go through people and be like, "Excuse me."
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And then from that, I've also listened to some of your podcasts you did, about songwriting, and also got to hear your the interview you did with Clarissa Cardenas, which is pretty great. And then you talked a lot about music, but you also talked about mental health and a lot more about you.
Sure, yeah.
So before we go into music, I want if we get a chance for the audience to get to know more about you, the life of Bob, where you're originally from, and how did your upbringings shape the person you are right now?
Well, my dad's he's a singer. He's an opera singer, actually, by profession. He's retired now, but he still performs. Like I do a show every year at the ACL Live at the Moody. We do a holiday show, and he performs in that every year. He did like Silent Night last year. He's 80, and I'm telling you, I've been watching him perform my entire life. It's probably the best thing I've ever heard him sing, and he's doing it at 80. So in front of 2,000 people, and got a standing ovation. People loved it. So that's kind of my upbringing. Is I've just always been around music. My parents like to party a lot, and my dad plays guitar. He could play 2,000 songs, and who knows how. He play anything. So I just grew up where he would be in the living room with a bunch of people and they're having a party, and he's just playing guitar and singing and providing the entertainment for the party. And then he taught me and my sister a couple songs, and then we'd get woken up in the middle of the night, come on down here and play a song for my friends. And we'd, 11 o'clock, come down in our pajamas, me and my sister, and play some, song, whatever song he taught us. And I was 4 or 5 years old, and when you're 4 years old and you're playing a song for people, they kind of go crazy when you're done. They're like, "Oh, you're amazing." So in my head, I've always had this idea that I'm some amazing, performer or something. But so just because I was, because when I was 4, I got that, feedback from these people. So I think your environment really has a lot to do with what you end up believing about what you can do. I've always thought I was some superstar, even though I'm not, but in my head I am. And I think you have to have that belief to do anything. I think in life, whatever you believe you can do, that's what you end up doing. And if you just tell yourself, well, I can't fly a plane, you're not going to fly a plane.
Yeah.
And if you tell yourself, well, anybody can fly a plane, you just got to learn how to fly a plane. and you'll probably fly a plane. Or, oh yeah, it's America. I can make $100 million. You probably make $100 million. You were like, I could never make $100 million. It's too much money. You just won't do it. So whatever you tell yourself, you can kind of do. So, so I just grew up in that sort of musical environment, and my parents just, you know, they were always like, my mom especially, she was like, oh, you're the greatest, you know, my whole life. So even now, my mom still comes to show. She'll heckle me, you know. She's so funny. She'll cuss and stuff, and like say the dirtiest things you've ever heard. I'm like, damn, Mom. Like I'll say, you know, if you see me at the Mucky Duck, I say all kinds of crazy stuff if I think it's funny or whatever. And people are like, what would your parents think? I'm like, you got to hear my mom talk. You know, she's got way dirtier mouth than I do. So I just been around music my whole life, and but I was never going to do it because it was my dad's thing, you know. So I was going to do. I did art when I was a kid. I just loved. I loved drawing. I love being like kind of controlling that part of my. Being in control of the world, you know, on the page and stuff, and so I was just going to do that, but then. When I got into college, I was real shy as a kid, you know, and I did a couple talent shows in college. And after I did the talent show, all these girls were like, hey, what's up? And I was like, wait, hold on. Forget this art thing. I'm going to do this music thing because, you know, I was just real shy. I'd never go up and talk to a girl. Now these girls are coming up and talking to me. I'm like, this music thing might be the way to go. So I ended up basically, I think one girl said, you know, rejected me when I was in 8th grade. And I was like, well, I guess I'll do music after that. So I've been doing it ever since. And
it's because that one girl rejected you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if I was more outgoing, like if I wasn't so shy, I'd probably just be making art instead of music. But I love it. I think it's the greatest job in the world, you know. It's just fun.
From like whenever you grew up and your parents were musicians, did you ever have a feeling where they push you to do music or they encourage you to do music?
I mean, they were supportive of anything that I did. Like they were really supportive of my art because I was just really good at it as a kid. You know, I could draw a picture of somebody and it would look exactly like them when I was like 5. So I've just always had that talent. And so they just like they would take me to art contests and I always won all the art contests I was in. So they were just supportive of, you know, they really wanted me to go to college. That was their big thing. So I went to college because they wanted me to go, but I didn't do well. I didn't get a degree or anything. I just went to party kind of. I actually went to UT El Paso for a year and a half, but pretty much I spent, I would say 5 to 6 nights a week in Juarez. So it's not conducive to getting up and going to school the next day, you know, when you're out.
Did you have a favorite place of tacos when you went to Juarez?
I don't remember the tacos. I just remember, I remember the stop that I went to. There was a couple places. There was a place called the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and they would serve these sandwiches. Like they would just make these sandwiches that were like ham and like cheese and like some kind of a bun, and they were amazing. But again, I'm eating those things at like 4 a.m, and they were, and then every about like 7th or 8th one of those, I would get like just terrible food poisoning, you know. But I remember that was my spot. I don't remember eating any tacos there, and then I remember going to this place called the Corner Bar because they had, it was like a bucket of Coronas for $2, and they had 25-cent tequila shots. And I was poor.
Yeah. So
for like $5, I could go over there and just like pretty much get a pretty good buzz on.
So going to Mexico and you know, getting your bus over there, but also you went through financial struggles. How was that like for you? Because financial things, you know, can break you, and then it can also affect your character. It can mess up a lot of things in your mentality. I grew up in the you know, also not the richest side. We grew up pretty limited financially.
Oh, we were poor when I was a kid.
It plays in your mind because as you're growing up, you're always thinking like, you know, whenever you have something, what do you do with it? How do you manage it?
Yeah. I mean, my parents, I mean, we were poor. I mean, when I say we were poor, I mean, we just like, because I lived in El Paso for a little bit when I was a kid. We lived over there for 4 years so my dad could study voice with this guy. But we went, we did all our shopping in Juarez, and we had like powdered milk and pinto beans, and, it was like not, we were getting by, but that pales in comparison to my 20s. Man, I was poor in my 20s. Like, I remember one time when I was going to school, my parents used to send me $250 a month, and my rent was $225. But if it was 3 days late, there was a $25 penalty, so it was $250 if I paid it after the third of the month, and I would always get the check from them like on the fourth. So I'd always have to pay, because for $25 back in those days, I could live like pretty well for $25. So I would have to give it all to him. And I just remember a few times where I just had no money. And when I say no money, I mean zero money, like no money in the bank, no change. I remember this one time I had a flat tire. I used to drive a mail Jeep. So that had a flat tire. I had no phone. My phone had been disconnected. I had this little TV. I had a TV literally that was this big. It was 2 inches by 2 inches, black and white, no cable, just, antenna. And I was living in this apartment in El Paso, and all I had in the fridge was this thing of Golden's brown mustard. And that was it, nothing else. And so every like few hours I'd get so hungry, I'd go to the fridge and I'd open it up and I'd get some tap water, drink it. And then I'd take this mustard and I'd put it on my finger and pretend that my finger was like a hot dog. And I'm like, and just eat this mustard off my finger and stop, drink some more water. And then I go back to watching like black and white TV. Yeah. I did that for 3 days. And again, I couldn't call anybody. Nobody came over. And I was like, I got to get out of this house and go find, they're going to find my corpse in this house after eating mustard for 3 days. So finally, and plus I was running low on mustard too. Yeah, so I was like, so
you were like, all right.
I mean, eventually
I don't have like.
Eventually I wasn't going to have any mustard. So I walk like 3 or 4 miles to my friend Hisham's house, who was the closest guy that I knew. And I get over to his house. And I'm like, and it's like in the middle of the summer. So it was like 100 degrees. There's no sidewalks in El Paso. So I'm like walking through the desert like in a movie. I haven't eaten in, 3 days. I'm weak. I'm like, I get to his house. I don't even know if he's there. There's no cell phones. It's like pre-cell phone, I'm like, I hope if he's not there, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not walking back home. So I knock on his door. No answer. Finally, I knock again. He comes. I hear a little something. He comes to the door. He's like, "Oh, Bobby, what are you doing?" And I'm like, and I look past him, and I see on top of his refrigerator one of those sleeves of saltine crackers. And it was like seeing the Holy Grail, like the guys who are like searching for the Holy Grail for like years, and they finally see it, like here, like light shining off it. And I was like, "Can I have one of those saltine crackers?" They're like, "Yeah, of course, dude." And I went over and I grabbed it and pulled it out, and like the light hit the salt and went ding, like you could hear like a, like that ding sound of the light hitting the salt, and Dude, that cracker was the best cracker it was maybe the best food I've ever eaten in my life. But yeah, so that's the thing about being an artist. They talk about being a starving artist. I mean, that's just part of the deal. Yeah. But I think it's good. I think it's good for your character. I think it gives you some depth that you might not have. It gives you that motivation to do something extra that maybe somebody else might not do.
Because it's tough as musicians. A lot of people want to do music, or a lot of people want to do something that is not the most, like let's say a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
So, with music, you got to buy your own equipment. You got to, if you have musicians in your set, you have to pay for everyone. So coming into, in an industry for someone like, for example, for me, I'm grateful that I have a full-time job. So this is not my, I'm doing this, building something, building a business out of it, but also out of passion. But I have something to fall back on where when sometimes musicians, they don't have, that backup. They can't because they have to tour. They have to get their music out there.
Yeah, I mean, I like having one plan A, and no plan B, C, or D, or any of the other initials. Just do plan A. And again, I had some hard times. I mean, there were times where I just didn't have any money, didn't have any gas in the car, but I think the trap that people fall into is they fall into this trap where I've had a few jobs where I did get a few jobs that I hated, but I never wanted to get like a good job. Like, I feel like people get a good job and they kind of fall into this trap where they're like, well, I'm making good money at this job. And then 20 years or 30 years go by and they've wasted their whole life on this, just chasing a dollar. And I've just never been motivated by trying to make money. I've always just been motivated by like wanting to create stuff and make things. And I mean, I feel fortunate now because I've been able to have enough success to where, I don't have to eat mustard for 3 days in a row.
No, it's more like 2 weeks.
So, yeah. So, but again, yeah, I mean, I think really truly following what everybody kind of knows what they're good at and what they want to do. So I remember when I first got to Austin, and again, this was like, I didn't know anybody. I wasn't in a band yet. I wasn't sure if I could even play music or if I could even make a living doing it. And I met this billionaire in Houston, of all places. And he was a real intense dude. And he came up to me and he like shook my hand. Like, he didn't introduce himself. He was a friend of this other friend of mine. That's how I met him. He didn't say like, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. He was just looked at me, like shook my hand and like looked at me like in the depth of my soul.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to ask yourself one question. What would you do with your life if you couldn't fail? I was like, what? Dude, this dude is intense. I was like, this dude's probably having sex with dudes. That's what I was thinking. I was like, this guy wants to have sex with me.
Yeah.
That was my first impression. But then I thought about what he said.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to ask yourself, what would you do with your life if you could not fail? Because that's what you really want to do. And then you do that. And I feel like that's what you're doing. You're doing that. You're like saying, hey, I have this dream of doing this thing and I'm going to do it, no matter what. So I think people don't do that enough. And it's a weird thing too, because there's a combination of like failure, like you're afraid to fail, but then also I think a lot of people are afraid to succeed too, which is a weird thing. Like, I'm not afraid of success, but some people, because of maybe the way they were brought up or something somebody said to them at some point, they feel like, well, I don't deserve success. And if you have that inside of you, like in your subconscious, it's a really hard thing to combat and get away from. So I don't know. I always tell people, just follow your heart, ask, anything. You can really do anything, but you have to I say you can do anything, but you can only do anything if you believe you can do it, and if you don't think you can do it, you're just not going to do it.
That's the thing. I think I always say every time I talk to someone, it's the first step. Taking the first step for people is hard Because I mean, once you take the first step to whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
that it's different, that's out of the, it's the ordinary in life. Once you take the first step, okay, the second step is better, and then you keep going, and then you keep going. But it's just also believing on the steps that you take.
Well, I'll tell you, so you got two parts of your brain. You got your conscious part of your brain,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you're aware of. But then you have your subconscious part of your brain, which you can't access. It's kind of like AI. I don't know how it works, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And now your subconscious part, that's the part that was all hardwired when you were like 0 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. It's got all this information, and it's got all this stuff that you're feeling and thinking all the time. And you don't know what the directions are of your subconscious, but most of your processing power of your brain is in your subconscious. So all your decisions are coming from that area. So what I found helpful, I did it when I was in my 20s. I wrote out sort of a script, like a story for my subconscious, so my subconscious would know what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. Not what I want to do, but what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So it was like, in 6 months, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be making this much money. I'm going to be living here. And then in a year, I'm going to be this and this. And I'm going to be dating this person. And then in 5 years, I'm going to be married. I'm going to have 2 kids. I'm going to, whatever the story, whatever I consciously wanted, I wrote it down so that my subconscious now
can get there.
Has the GPS, has the map to get there. And then you can put that away, and you can look at it in a year or 2 years or whatever, or never look at it. It doesn't matter, because that's just for your subconscious. And doing that, what I found was like not all of it, but 80% of that stuff that I wrote down came to fruition. It's stuff that I didn't even think. And it was like, the first time I did it was stuff like, I'll own a computer. Dude, this is Mustard. Yeah. This is Mr. Mustard.
Yeah.
Like, Mr. Mustard's gonna own a fucking computer? Fuck no, dude. I'll be lucky if I have some bread and cheese to put with the mustard, let alone a computer. Yeah. I'm right. I will have a computer. Like, no way am I gonna have a computer in my conscious. No way. But I wrote it down. And sure enough, a year later, I had a computer.
Because the thing is, like, I think once you write it or you put it in your mind, it's going to be there. It's not going to, you're never going to unlearn what you learn.
Well, you'll just make decisions. Because every day you're making decisions. You're doing all these things. Mm-hmm. You're not even aware of how you're affecting your life. Everybody that you come in contact with, like you came in contact with me at the thing and you were like, hey, do you want to do this? I didn't know who you were, but something about you was like, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. There's, you know what I mean? So some part of your subconscious is creating this reality. It brought me here to do this podcast with you. And you're doing that all the time with other people too. So you're creating this reality. You're manifesting your subconscious desires in your life. There's, and not everybody could do that. People ask me to do stuff and I'm like, I don't think so. But there's something about you that made me want to go, yeah, I want to come do this.
I appreciate it. Thank you. No, it's an interesting thing because so whenever I started this, I always wanted to have my friends talk and shoot the shit, but also have people that are actually, artists, and because I like hearing from everyone I can.
Sure.
And then my goal was, I want to have this big time comedian from Mexico, Carlos Vallarta. I don't know how, I don't know when, but he's going to be in the podcast one day. And then the opportunity came where I saw he was going to be coming to Austin at the beginning of this year in April to do a comedy show at the Paramount. And then I did my credential application. I got denied, but I kept insisting with the Paramount team, like, hey, I need your help. I don't need anything from you guys, but if you can provide the email contact that you have from Carlos Vallarta, we've been following him for some time. Well, I've been following him for some time, and I really would like to have him here. And this is why, I told them about like what this is about, and then they're like, yeah, here it is. So then I sent the email to his people, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm shooting my shot. If I get a reply, cool. If not, I'm not gonna take it personal. A week later, I get the reply, hey, Carlos is interested on doing the podcast with you. And I'm talking about this guy is very quiet. You have to be the one bringing the conversation out of him. And then if he's on the car with you, he's on his phone checking on, whatever. So it's like, it's how can you first manage to have a conversation with him in a microphone? I'm pretty sure him, as someone that's done it for some time, he knows how to turn on the switch and, hey, how's it going, guys? But after that, it's kind of like, hey.
Yeah.
So, but the fact that actually Duke is the one, he came and helped me tear down afterwards. Man, the feeling of, I was like, dude, I literally just had Carlos Vallarta in the podcast.
Yeah.
And like for me, it's like, you know what? The views are going to happen. I don't care if I get 5 views, if I get a good amount of views. Dude, I just had Carlos Vallarta in the podcast. And I was like, okay, if I can do and get him, it's going to be easier to get other people that, I want to get to know. I want to highlight. And then I think next year, the people that I really want is just, but it's also how do you dive into those scenarios where you ask permission, you ask the right person, and also at the end of the day, give them a reason why, the purpose of why you want to do it, and think giving them that reason why is like, okay, it helps.
Yeah. Well, it's all, I think you said it earlier, you said it's about taking those steps.
Mm-hmm.
You just take those first steps. It's everything. Success is like building a snowman. Mm-hmm. That first part, when you just have a little tiny ball of snow and you're like trying to roll it, it's not really picking up any snow. It's not really doing anything. Mm-hmm. But then at a certain point, it gets big. And then when you're rolling that, it's picking up everything. And it's easy to go. It's hard to go from here to here, but from here to here is no problem.
Yeah.
So just getting started. I think getting started is really hard with anything, but believing in yourself and then having these victories, like this guy that you really wanted on your podcast, that means the whole thing. And then you just start believing in yourself more and more, and then Joe Rogan had to start. You know what I mean? He had to start somewhere, but obviously, Joe Rogan's not a great example because he was a huge star when he started his podcasting. But he never thought he was gonna. He never thought when he started that he was gonna be just Conan just started a few years ago. He never thought he was gonna
be doing it.
Become this like global podcast king. He just did it as a lark. So you just never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's true. I think.
But you can do it. You really can do anything.
Yeah. No,
as long as you believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that my parents always engraved in me. They were like, whatever you wanted to do it. My dad was like, look, I couldn't do it. I got married super young. So he's like, I don't care what you do, just be productive in life.
Yeah.
And he even, I mean, we were Christian, and then he was, he never really pushed me to be Christian, but he always told me to just watch out what I say, because I have I have pretty strong opinions about everything. But it's always, and even to this day, my dad, like when we first started, I don't drink in front of him, but he saw me drinking in the podcast the first week. He's like, now he's the reason why. And like, okay, it's good. Like there's something behind it that, he's not just bullshitting.
Which brings us to my graphic novel. On that note.
Can you share a little more about, FAYM? What does it stand for?
So around 2006, I wrote a song called Someday, and it was a song that I wrote, and it felt like it was in a musical. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, this song sounds like a song that would be in like Wizard of Oz or something, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I could like take some of my other songs and create a story out of it. And so I kind of did that over the course of about 2 years. I created this story from that song and a bunch of other songs, and called it, it's called Fuck All You Motherfuckers. But at the time I was the idea was I was going to take these songs and put it on a CD and start selling the CD at Waterloo at the time. And so I was like, well, I can't put that on the CD cover because they're just not going to display it. So I did the initials FAYM. Plus, it just looks like FAYM, you know. And so I came up with the album artwork, and then I ended up not putting the album out, but I started making T-shirts that said FAYM, which people, as soon as they found out what it stood for, they're like, I'll take one of those T-shirts. And I've sold 10,000 of those shirts now. Like,
do you still have any available?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like one of my biggest sellers are those shirts. So it's becoming ubiquitous with me, that FAYM slogan. But in the meantime, over the years, I've had this sort of idea that this would be a stage production, like on Broadway, maybe a movie. And also, I was always like, I really wanted to make it into a graphic novel because I've always been a huge fan of like comic books and graphic novels and stuff like that. So during the pandemic, I saw an artist on Instagram who was using one of my songs to animate some stuff. And I was like, oh, I really like that animation you did. And he's like, oh, I'm a huge fan of your music. And I'm like, oh, I was thinking about doing this graphic novel version of my musical. And he was like, oh, I'd love to do that. So we worked out a deal, and it took him about 2 years to do all the art, and it's just coming out now. And we're celebrating the big release, and we're doing a big signing on the day before Halloween here in Austin.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The 30th.
Yeah.
It's in a Monday, right?
Yeah, it's a Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've been playing at this place called the Saxon Pub every Monday now for 24 years, if you can believe it. Like, I've just been doing it. It's sort of like the laboratory for me, where I get to play any songs I wrote that week, and I've written like probably 2,500 songs now. So I have a deep catalog of old material, and so we pull that stuff out, and I love it. It's like kind of hearing my music for the first time, because I don't practice with the band. So I just send them the music, they learn it, and then I show up and I'm listening to this kind of being played for the first time. So it's pretty exciting. So we're gonna do all the music from the rock opera or musical or whatever you want to call it on the 30th, and the guy who did the art, Justin Barker, is going to be here to like sign books and stuff like that. So.
It's the same artist that did the animations, and they was doing it with your music in the background.
Yeah, the same guy. He lives in where does he live? He lives in
Duke knows.
Portland. Wait, is it Portland? Yeah, he lives in Portland.
Okay.
Good God. I'm telling you, dude, my brain, I can't remember anything anymore. Yeah, he lives in Portland. Okay. So he's flying in from Portland to be here for that. So,
and one thing that I wanted like to talk about is like, now you're having all of this, your music, you have a repertoire of songs that you've written and you play from when you were going through the struggle. When did it change, and how did your perception of life change?
Well, I'll tell you, so it was a few, I mean, I struggled for years. So I was going to UTEP. The mustard story happened in UTEP while I was going to school there. I just didn't have any dough, and I was too shy to actually even apply for a job at that point. So I heard about Austin through this I saw an article in this Spin magazine about the True Believers and the Butthole Surfers that both lived here in Austin, and I was like, man, I think I'm going to move to Austin and just try music and see if I can make a go of it. And so I dropped out of school, which my parents hated. They were like not happy about it. Moved here, I had $300. I knew a girl who lived here, and she let me stay in her house. She was like, I'll let you stay here for 4 days. And that's it. You have to find and when I moved here, that was in 88, I found a place that I could move in for $275. And I think it was $225 a month. This is how cheap it was to live in Austin in 1988. $225 a month, all bills paid. and then the deposit was $50. So it was $275, and I still had $25 left over, which was for me a huge amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a job at Mr. Gaddy's, working at Mr. Gaddy's. So I got, could eat for free basically. And I just moved here and just started playing, but it probably took me, that was in 88. It took me until about 1990 when I started playing in a band. I played in a bunch of different bands that just didn't make any money or do anything. And then I started playing in a band called Joe Rockhead, which was kind of like Red Hot Chili Peppers, kind of like rap, rock, kind of whatever. And we started playing in a place called Black Cat on 6th Street. And after we played there for a few months, we started getting an audience. And I just remember that's kind of where it changed for me. And that was in 91. I haven't done anything except for music since then. I haven't had any other jobs. And now the place I was staying at in 91, I was paying $100 a month, all bills paid. So I was paying even less than, when I moved here.
Better.
But I mean, obviously those places don't exist anymore in Austin, but so it was really cheap for me to live. But I was making, I don't know, I want to say I was making like $300 a gig, or maybe it was $400 a gig. So, I mean, I was like swimming in dough because my rent was $100. So I just had all this leftover money. And, and we started doing really well, and we got really popular. And to the point where it was just sold every time we play, it was sold out. And we recorded by the same guys that the record company that did Cypress Hill came and saw us, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to sign you." And, but I was like kind of a mess at that time. I was drinking a lot, and so they came and saw us play, and we're going to sign us, and we're like, "Oh, we're going to have the big meeting tomorrow. We'll sign the details and stuff." And I just drank all night, and then it showed up the next day just wasted. And they were like, "Maybe we're not going to do a deal." And so I kind of blew that. But yeah, I mean, I've just been playing music ever since. That band broke up after that. And then I played in some other bands that we got signed, and eventually I quit drinking and then started playing as a solo artist like around 2000. So I've been doing that now for 23 years. And just, I don't know. At some point I was just like, oh, this is something I can do. Like, it's something I'm good at. It's something I have the skills to do. It's something I have an audience of people that appreciate what I do. I started winning a lot of Austin Music Awards, which are just like popularity contests, really. It's not really how good you are. It's just how many people want to vote for you and like what you do. So I've won a lot of those awards throughout the years, which has really been really gratifying. Just feels pretty good, just to have people say that they like you. So yeah, so I don't know. So it's just what I do. I've been doing it since 91. So that's 32 years.
Yeah.
Dude, how weird is that? 32 years.
And you're still going at it.
I mean, what's weird is how young I am, because I'm only in my late 30s.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
So I must have started when I was like real young.
Yeah.
When I say late 30s, I mean the parking lot's empty. There's nobody in the parking lot. It's late. It's late.
It's still there's the security guys coming, like looking at you. Hey, everything's good. Checking on you. Giving you that. Hey, you guys are good.
Yeah, they're like, you're gonna have to move your car. The street sweeper's coming. Late 30s.
Man, now talking about like Austin, how meaningful is the city for you, for your craft, and for just your career? Because your career has just been revolved, or it's been based here in Austin.
It has. I love Austin. I mean, Austin's changed a lot. Like I said, when I got here, the rent was $225. I got down to $100 a month. So if you're paying $100 a month to live, you don't have to work a lot. You can spend all your time making music, fucking around. Those days are gone. You can't, I mean, I don't even know what the cheapest apartment would be, but I'm sure it's in the thousands for the cheapest apartment. So you got to have a job. You got to be making real money to live here. And that's not what being an artist is, you know, like I just was barely making any money, so it was perfect. So at that point, that's when we got the name Live Music Capital of the World. You know, and we still say that we're the live music capital of the world, but people that call Austin their home, they're not living in the city. They're living in San Marcos. They're living in Bastrop. They're living in, you know, Dripping Springs or whatever. You know, they're living on the outskirts of town because you can't live here, you know, and be eating mustard and make your bills. You know what I mean? It's just, those days are over. But when I was here and when I was coming up, it was very, so you know, it was a great place to make music, and so we had this thriving music scene. There is still a music scene here. Obviously, we have Austin City Limits, we have South by Southwest, these big events that happen. But in terms of just living here and it being friendly to like up and coming musicians, it really isn't anymore. It's just not. So
Yeah.
you'll find all those people there in Buda, they're in New Braunfels, they're, you know, wherever. They're around here, but they're not in Austin. Which is, you know, it's just the way it is. And the city's grown and it's gotten bigger and more expensive, so it's just harder to make a living here, where you're making enough dough if you're starting out playing music. So
That's what I think. I don't know if you heard of the band Como Las Movies. They're they were talking about that last time. They were saying the blessing of, you know, playing in Austin is just because you're, you know, a band that's from Austin, and the music is, you know, great, and I'm pretty sure people appreciate it, but it's just how the environment is for a musician. You gotta have a full-time job now.
well, the other thing too that you used to be able to do that you just can't do anymore, like there used to be all these clubs that you could play here in the late 80s, early 90s, because it was so cheap to rent, to have a club, to run a club. You could give the profits to the musician. So like, I mean, when I was playing in the 90s, you would play a place and you'd get 100% of the door, 90% of the door. And that's not the place. That's not the case now. I mean, these places, like when I play Austin City Limits at the Moody Theater, they take like 80% of the door. And, but they, you know, that's like really expensive real estate. They gotta pay for that real estate. So, you know, back in the days, I was playing at Liberty Lunch. They didn't have a bathroom, you know, they had like one room in the back. It was a great place to play. You made all the money, but, you know, but it's just the economics have changed. So it's not, you know, again, you know, we call ourselves the live music capital of the world. It's just you know, it's not a reality. Yeah. It's just kind of a name. It's like Best Buy, you know, is that the best place to get stuff? Probably not. But it's still called Best Buy. They're not going to change it to like,
just to keep bringing in the crowd.
Yeah. So, you know, which is too bad, because Austin's great. I love Austin. The culture here, the vibe is cool. I think it's very inclusive. I think people are very open, and like you know, you get a lot of different people living here and kind of getting along, which is great. And I think that comes from the fact that it's just been this sort of like massive university town that's just grown and grown and grown. So because of that, you know, you have just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I go all over the country, and I feel like for my taste, I think Texans are my favorite. They're the most genuine, friendly, nice people, and I love Austin, and I love Texas. So it's hard to beat it. But again, you know, obviously the way it's grown, and the technology and stuff coming in, and everything going through the roof in terms of how expensive everything is, it's made it difficult, I think, for artists to live here. Yeah.
So with for shows, and right now as a musician, you're being at the Saxon Pub for over 20 years.
Yeah, started doing it back in '99, so yeah, 24 years.
And then are you still doing the New Year's shows at the Paramount?
Play every year at New Year's at the Paramount. Play every right after Thanksgiving. I do ACL Live at the Moody. I do a Christmas show there, like holiday show, and then I do a Valentine's show there, and do a lot of shows around Austin throughout the year, and a lot of shows around Texas, and then the rest of the time I tour the country.
That's good. The reason why I'm asking is because you have the show after Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
And then the day before Thanksgiving, Los Tigres del Norte come at ACL Live. So I think this year I already got plans of what to do.
Oh, nice. That would be great.
Yeah. It's I mean, hearing from someone with your experience and what you've gone through, and then how you've become multifaceted in music, but also diving into art and doing, like doing it. I hope that anyone that wants to become an artist or aiming to become an artist, they can take something from here as a motivation. And at the end of the day, it's up to you and how you sit, where you put your subconscious, and how are you gonna tell your subconscious that you're gonna do something. That's a huge thing, because for the Hispanic community, we're starting to step into those areas of getting our subconscious to do things.
Yeah.
And not just work, not just have a 9-to-5 job, that you can do more than that. So I think for me is every time I hear someone talk about this type of things, it's a motivation, because it's all like in the mental health too. I think more of mental health now compared to the past, especially with everything that's going on in the world, and then also even like immigration.
Yeah.
So I was just, you can have a pretty bad day, but also just keep in mind, like, okay, at the end of the day, like, you still have to do it. I think that's where it's at for me.
I think everything in the world is about doing, because a lot of people think stuff and none of that matters. Like, no thoughts. Like, you can think all day, like, oh, I'm going to do this one day, or I'm going to do that one day, or maybe I could do this, or maybe I could do that. None of that matters. The only thing that matters, action. So even like that thing I was talking about, like writing down this sort of script for what your life is going to be, just taking that that's an action. That's not a thought. That's a physical thing that you're doing, and that putting that physical thing into the world, letting your subconscious, the part that you can't access, know this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm heading. That's an action, and all of those, that little action will lead to another action, will lead to another action, and then you're sitting there talking to this famous comedian, that's part of your life. So, you know what I'm saying? So that's all it is. It's just taking those actions and telling yourself and allowing yourself to just, it's not, it's weird too about it. Like when I talked about writing down that I'm going to have a computer, where at the time I was like, my conscious part was like, there's no way I'm going to have a computer.
Yeah.
But you just do it. You just go, well, no, because I'm going to do what that billionaire said, which is like, do the thing where if a genie came in and said, whatever you decide, you can't fail. It's going to happen. Write that down. Write it down, even if it feels crazy, and put that into the world, and then you never know what'll happen, Like, I mean, at one point, Beyonce was some girl living in Houston that had dreams of being some big star, and, when she was 12, nobody was thinking like, oh, you're going to be the biggest star in the world. But somehow she put that in her mind, or somebody put it in her mind, and then she became that, Yeah. So anybody, can do any, again, it's the only thing that's stopping you is you. That's, but it's easy to. I mean, most people I know are telling themselves they can't do stuff, and as soon as you tell yourself you can't do it, it's over. As soon as you do, because you can't fight that. So you just have to allow yourself the possibility that anything's possible.
Yeah, listen, pay attention. That's good.
Yeah, you can do it.
There you go. No, man, it's great. Bob, I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming. And also check him out on October 30th at the Saxon Pub.
Saxon Pub, October 30th, and lots of, or any Monday ever for the rest of your life. I'll be at Saxon Pub.
We're going to have to come and check it out. But no, it's great. And then also the shows that, you can see more about his tour and more music. And then also the Patreon you have with the songwriting podcast. Is that still like you're doing it monthly or how's it?
Yeah, I've got the Song Club, which has been great. Getting a lot of support on Patreon with that. And I've got a couple podcasts. I'm Okay, You're Okay. I'm Not Okay, You're Not Okay. That's a podcast. And then I have a Song Club podcast. So, yeah, so doing that and just playing a lot of shows and, got a great family, wife and kids and stuff. So that's the most important thing in my life. And everything else is just gravy, so.
I think when you take care of the most important thing, everything else will just fall together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, great. But I appreciate everyone that listen. Take the opportunity to check us out on Spotify, YouTube. Duke, he's behind the scenes in the 1 and 2s. And yeah,
Duke, you're a good audience, by the way. I didn't know. I've watched the podcast. I didn't know you were back there, but you're a great audience member. A lot of smiling and laughing from Duke over there. It's great.
That's why he's sort of what do you call it? He's a friend that you want to have because he smiles and laughs at you. But if you do something wrong, he'll like, hey, shut up, bro. He's comfortable to be like that. So yeah, honest guy.
Yeah, it's good. Good stuff. Thanks for having me on the podcast. It's been great. Thank you.
And we're gonna have to go to a game soon next season.
Can't wait.
I'll hit you up and see when we go. All right. Se cuidan, se portan bien y arriba el América.